said. It is true, I'm a lonely woman who could do with a loving man. And I admit, I've been praying to the Lord to send me one. But I've been praying for a hole. Well, height ain't got nothing to do with loving. Says who?
But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." You've been dating for a while, and you've had this feeling in the pit of your stomach that it's just not going to work out. And the truth is, you're probably right. What we have found from research is that men will have at least 6 partners, with at least 2 of those relationships lasting over a year before they find that special one. Women will have 5 such relationships. Many of us hope that special person who'll take our breath away will be the one. And just when you think things are going well, oops, you find a mama's boy and you kick him to the curb. But your penchant for bad boys has gotten you in trouble, and then one day you see that successful man with his wife and children, and you want to just die inside. Pray as you might, Black adults are more likely to be single than white or Hispanic adults. And while there are many theories that suggest the destabilization of the Black family created households where there were no men, it soon became commonplace that single female households would become the norm in the African American community. Relationships solely based on chemistry were never destined to survive if there wasn't a greater emotional investment in the other person. There is a way to understand the relationship between chemistry and compatibility as demonstrated in this quadrant chart. Low chemistry and low compatibility means the relationship is a non-starter. High chemistry and low compatibility may be hot and heavy for a while, but the constant fighting and inability to communicate severs those relationships pretty quickly. Low chemistry and high compatibility relationships are those couples who are bored, have no anticipation of excitement, and just exist because they're pals. The sweet spot is high chemistry and high compatibility. Those are those relationships that have become battle-tested, they're friends, they trust, and they complement each other. For those who've become tired of the games, rejection, and just plain no options, a matchmaker may be the solution. With the business of love being over $1 billion, professional matchmakers are getting their significant portion of the pot, generating revenues in excess of $500 million. Today you hear from 2 professional matchmakers. This is simply an option to consider if you're not yielding the results you'd like.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Michelle, and I want to welcome you to another segment of Tabernacle Talks. And I am so excited today because we have the best matchmakers that I could find anywhere. Their reputations precede them, and so I don't want to steal their thunder. But if some of you are wondering what show you turned into, we're talking about chemistry versus compatibility and trying to find an ideal partner. So if my singles out there, if you've got a girlfriend, go get her, call her, tell her to tune in, or, certainly this will rebroadcast so you'll be able to share it with family and friends. And all my married friends, you may have single children or single girlfriends, so take really good notes. And we'll make sure that we make this really fun. But before we get started, I want to introduce my guests. They're very exciting people. So let's start with Jennifer Mayaki from One-on-One Matchmaking.
Hi.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Always love podcasts. It's fun. It's really fun to be doing it with my friend in Atlanta. So I've been a matchmaker for about 15 years total. I work for a company called One-on-One Matchmaking in Atlanta, Georgia. And our company also runs another dating service called 8 at 8 Dinner Club. And it's 4 girls, 4 guys getting together for dinner. We also do events. So what's really cool about our matchmaking service is that the clients can go on dates. They're set up 2 or 3 times a month, and we put them out at an event. So they just have a lot of opportunity. And I personally use Matchmakers myself, online dated. I met my husband through a matchmaker, and now I'm married and have two kids. So I think that also makes me unique as a matchmaker, having lived the experience and having tried a lot of different things.
Well, thank you. I want to put a shout out to your business owner, Sarah Catherine Smith. So
Yes.
shout out, Sarah.
Yes,
Smith.
yeah, she started the business 24 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
24 years ago. That's amazing. Okay, my next guest is Yolanda Kelly from In Vogue, Love in Vogue.
Yeah.
Let's hear about you and Love in Vogue.
Hi, Dr. Michelle. Thank you for the invitation, and my counterpart, Jennifer. My name is Yolanda Kelly, and the name of my business is Love in Vogue Matchmaking. Now, I haven't been in business 24 years, only since 2017. But what sparked my interest in matchmaking was my own experience of living single in the city of Atlanta. And I started researching, and I'm just like, there just has to be a better way for Black women to meet Black men. And so that started my interest. I went to the Matchmaking Institute in New York and got certified. And then I launched this business, and it has been quite the journey. So, but before matchmaking, I was a nurse, or I am a nurse of 21 years, a registered nurse.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So, but this I have grown really passionate about, and my business is unique in the fact that I only work with African-American clients.
Can each of you share some interesting statistics? And I'll probably start with you, Jennifer, and I'll probably go back and forth. Some surprising statistics that our audience may not know about modern dating.
The main thing is the number of singles has gone up. There's like maybe 63%, and the age in which people marry is going up. And the divorce rate is staying about the same at roughly 50%. So I just think there's a lot of people that are settled into being single, and I feel like it has less of a stigma.
Wow. And what are you seeing at Vogue? Are you seeing the same type of dynamic that the people are getting married older? They're waiting? That's interesting.
Well, so I think I agree with Jennifer that, there is this segment of singles that they're choosing just to live single and to be single, that they're maybe not interested in partnership. But I do want to share this statistic with you from an AJC survey in 2015, that there are 80,000 more single women than men in the city of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is huge. So, that is huge. I have a published article in Hype magazine where I talk about that. And the age group is 18 to 64. Well, we're not really expecting age group. I mean, pretty much on average, we're looking, my clients are 35 and older. So I deal with an older demographic. But also about 5,500 females are unmarried out of those, 80,000, and they're about the same number of males, and that continues to climb every year. So it's such a gap here in the city.
Well, the one thing that I did find, in my research is that there are a lot of women eligible wanting to date, and they're not dating. Jennifer, can you kind of give us a little background about why these women are at home and they're not going out?
Yeah, I hear that more and more. I mean, just last week, I saw at least 2 women that hadn't dated in a decade. And these are attractive, fit, accomplished women with great social skills. I think that they at some point have tried dating and it was really frustrating. You know, they felt like they met men that were flaky, that were of not the same caliber professionally, that didn't want to commit. And they just got frustrated because they have great lives. You know what I mean? They usually have good families, like a lot of good friends, a great social network, and they just don't have the time or desire to have the time to spend it with people that aren't serious, you know? But it is, you know, you can't just let a decade go by and things haven't changed, you know? So like, for instance, one of the girls that I saw last week, she was 38 and she hadn't had a serious boyfriend since she was 28. So the guys that she finds attractive are still in their 30s. You know what I mean? And she doesn't look the same as she did when she was 28. And how men view a 38-year-old woman is different than how they view a 28-year-old woman. So, you know, I think people put it off for too long. And I think that's common, actually. Don't you think, Yolanda?
I do. I mean, you hear this narrative, you know, the professional woman is now kind of comfortable in her own skin. So, yeah. I mean, this segment of women, like they're traveling. I mean, they're comfortable doing all the things that they would do partnered, but they're doing it unpartnered. And, you know, they kind of, and they don't want to put up with the nonsense of dating online. They don't have time for it. And so they just go out and do these things themselves. And that, you know, and then life is passing, right? And then some of them wake up one day and say, yes, oh, I want to have a child, or now I think I want a husband. And that's when they come to us and they start considering matchmaking.
Yeah, I found one of the statistics that I wrote down. So the number of Christian singles is going down every year. So in 2020, it was 65%. In 2015, it was 75%. In 2012, it was 81.6. And in 1990, it was 85%. And so of these 65%, 62 people are members of a church. So that's also changed dating. And it's strange when I have people that want to meet a Christian single. Sometimes I have harder time finding people that are involved than I would sometimes just matching up Jewish singles, actually, because at least like culturally they are on the same page, like Jewish, but the people that are involved in their church and they want to meet somebody that is involved in their church as well, they have a really hard time finding that match.
And I think you're probably going to see that even more so post-COVID, because a lot of people have been sheltered in place in the last 24 months, and now they've learned how to worship at home. And so a lot of those self-proclaimed Christians are saying, well, I'm not done with God, I'm just done with church. So they're not necessarily going to be that easy to find. So I think that's very interesting that you say that. So what makes a person choose a matchmaker? And I guess, Yolanda, can you tell me what would make me, rather than go online, say that I'm going to use the services from your companies?
Yeah, so most of my consultations, you know, they come because they've tried online. They're not having success, and relationship becomes a central focus for them in their lives. And they, you know, matchmaking, I tell you what really popularized the idea is all of the shows about matchmaking. So now I can say in the Black community, they're becoming familiar with matchmaking as a concept and a resource and an option. So, you know, they've been in that online space. They're sick of catfishing and, you know, just meeting all these weird people. And they just want someone to filter all of the activity. And so they really are now seriously consider matchmaking as an option.
Now, can you define for people? I know what catfishing is, just so people in the audience understand what catfishing is.
Yeah, so catfishing is you meet someone online, but they're not really who they say they are.
Okay, let's get to how do you find candidates?
Yes. So how do I find clients is the
Yes.
question. Yeah. So social media, referrals from other matchmakers. Like we have a network, so we work together. And so where a client may not be appropriate for Jennifer's agency, she may refer them to Love and Vogue. And then word of mouth, people that we service, we do a good job, and then they share it with others.
So Jennifer, I'm going to put you on the spot. How would do you just like walk up to people and say, hey, I'd like to know something about you? How do you do that?
Yolanda, well, I mean, I have done that to find people for my clients, but generally people are finding us. I mean, I would say that for most people that make around $150,000, at some point they're seeking out a matchmaker. They've typically, I mean, most professionals that I know, and Yolanda, you'll have to chime in, they've been doing online dating on and off for 5 to 10 years. You know what I'm saying?
So true.
So at a certain point, just like anything, they're going to see what else is out there. They're going to Google dating, and matchmakers are going to come up. And, there's in most cities, major cities, there's only a handful of matchmakers in major cities. So, I mean, if you Googled African-American matchmaking, Yolanda would be the first to come up. If you Googled matchmaking in general, definitely our company is one of the first to come up. So I think people are just curious. And we also advertise. Our company has billboards and billboards at the airport. So a lot of people are finding us, and I would say at least 35% of our business is referred, because we've had a business, Sarah Catherine's had a business for 24 years, and the matchmaking company's been around for about 15 years. So, there's a reputation. And then some of our clients, we do search for, like, if I know somebody is a great catch, I might friend them on LinkedIn and see that they have another friend on LinkedIn and see if they seem to be single and send them a message. But that is a small percentage of our business that we're seeking out. They usually find us.
Okay, so if people are seeking you out.
Yeah.
We've certainly been in a pandemic, which I
Right.
hope doesn't become an endemic, but right now they're still calling it a pandemic. How has COVID impacted dating? Yolanda, if you want to just jump in and just.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in on the COVID, because I can share a story. I sent one of my clients out on a date, and on the date, she learned that the gentleman was absolutely against vaccination because he worked from home, and he didn't feel like he would have, an exposure to that level. So, but she, who worked in healthcare, was really adamant about vaccination. So COVID, I believe, is really having a direct impact on dating. When the pandemic started, I think Jennifer may agree. I mean, you had to pivot in the business, because what we do is bring people together. So we had to figure out some new ways to connect our clients, and Zoom was a major part of that. So Jennifer, do you have any other thoughts about?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was panicked that I know, and missed the matchmakers. I know, Zoom dating. And, I hated that. I mean, I just don't feel like you can predict chemistry. And I think predicting chemistry is really hard to do. And
I think you make a good point, though, because if I'm out on my own, most people are wearing masks. So if I'm trying to meet someone, it's kind of hard to connect with someone when you have on a mask and I have on a mask. So if you have the ability to set up a Zoom call and, can kind of serve as an intermediary, it's not as much of a shock, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, you can at least see their face. But yeah, I mean, I never personally did Zoom dating, and I would think it would be hard to predict chemistry. I mean, I don't think it's impossible. I mean, people fall in love on the internet with people they haven't even met before, but I think it's harder, from, like, I mean, you literally can't physically touch someone. So, But we were in Georgia, and it's a divided state. So, I mean, a lot of our clients, I don't know, I would say 35–40% of them still wanted to meet people face to face.
Wow.
You know?
That's surprising. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they would go on a walk or something like that and maybe do a picnic. They would sit outside, but I still had dates going on, and we were changing it based on the couple, and we still do that. I mean, I have fertility doctors and all kinds of doctors that are, very COVID cautious. And I also feel like this is, again, highlighted politics. And unfortunately, in Georgia, where it's a divided state, politics have, become a really big part of matchmaking. And it's just yet another thing that makes it harder. Wouldn't you agree, Yolanda? I don't know if you have the same.
Yeah, not so much politics, on my side of things. Yeah.
Now let's talk about we talked about many of your clients, before they get to you, they've probably tried online dating.
Right.
Do you find, or is there any data out there that says one method is better or more reliable than the other? I mean, instead of going to a bar, it's, for me, I hear safety in you kind of doing some of the sourcing before I'm just going to meet somebody cold turkey, I would think.
What do you think, Yolanda?
Yeah, I mean, I think matchmaking just yields a better result because our approach is more intentional. When you're in an online space and you have all of this, I'll say, noise kind of coming in your direction, and you're a professional person, you really don't have time to follow up on that and, get to have enough conversation to get to going on an actual date. And so it's definitely easier to connect with a matchmaker because we're actually setting up dates, we're choosing locations, we're taking some of the thought and energy out of what you have to do to be successful with dating.
Wow. Okay, so share with me, both of you, if you can, and I'll start with you, Jennifer. What are some of the turnoffs that you see when clients come back to you after they've gone out on a date, and what is a consistent thing that you hear in terms of the feedback?
I think on both sides, people are frustrated when the other party doesn't ask questions. I hear that from both men and women. The man will say, she talked the entire time about herself, didn't ask me any questions. I definitely hear women say that. So, I mean, both sides do that. I still think the paying thing is a little bit of if a man doesn't pay for a date, we definitely still hear about that from women.
So I can't have crocodile arms on the date. Do you establish that before? Who pays?
So with our clients, maybe, if I'm honest, maybe not as well as we should. We tell the men that everything that we do is like a friend setting them up on a date. So we want them to behave the way they would if they're good friends setting them up on a date. So yeah, we make some assumptions that the guys would pay, and generally it's not a problem.
Okay.
But I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit of a feminist, and I think a woman should offer to pay. I mean, I really do. I feel like they go into hiring matchmakers as equal partners, and they want an equal relationship when it comes time to settle down. So I feel like women should at least offer. I'm just not for the a woman being entitled that she should pay and never offer, and that's a given, because so many times, I mean, Yolanda knows, these women might out earn these guys. Do you know what I mean? So it's a little crazy that they would be above, getting their $60 tab if they make $250,000, right? Especially if they don't want to see the guy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't do that with a girlfriend. So I feel like times are changing, and I encourage women to at least offer. and to send a thank you text, because in Atlanta, if a guy's going on a date, I would say it's pretty common to spend $150. Wouldn't you, Yolanda?
Yeah, I mean, that's about an average date. Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah, but my approach is a little bit different from Jennifer's in the aspect, you know, because I market a traditional service, so the men always pay. But if you're going on a second date, and who's ever suggesting that second date is generally the person who should pay for the date. So, you know, I usually get date one out, you know, and the guy is paying. But if they're continuing to see each other, I do talk to the women about, look, if you're suggesting the second date, you should be prepared to pay for the date.
Yeah. Yeah, we offer traditional matchmaking too. Sarah Catherine is very traditional, but I'm not. I'm not. You know? So we give different advice for things. But yeah, usually the men pay. I think that most women in our state, if a guy doesn't pay for a first date, you know, they're crashing and burning. So it's a traditional state.
Okay, guys, you hear that out there? And that's not just a Georgia thing. Okay, let's say I've gone on a date, and I use myself as an example, and I am just crazy about that person. I just really, really like them. And then they give you feedback that they really, really, really didn't like me. What? How are you? I'm going to start with you, Yolanda. How are you going to break it to me?
You know, I think it's still challenging for me to kind of let people down in that way, but it's my job to be honest, right? Because after they go on a date, we get feedback from both parties about, you know, how the date went. So I just look, I try and have, especially women, right? Because, you know, I find that women, like, they come to date one and they want to marry. Like, it's just like, forget that I'm just getting to know this person. Like, calm down, slow down, and just kind of pay attention to his actions and what he's saying. Did he invite you on a second date? Did he do a follow-up call? Because we know that anyone who's really interested in you, they're gonna do those things. You know, it's almost like a no-brainer, but I think the women, what I find is they really overthink the first date, especially if they have not been dating a lot.
Especially, yeah, because they have this ideal type that they're looking for, and they've not been dating a whole lot, and they finally find this guy and they're like, oh, I'm gonna land this. And you know, the reality of it is they haven't dated a guy like that, and they don't know yet that guy's not interested in them. And sometimes I think matchmaking is for them to experience who likes them and who doesn't live.
Mm-hmm. So that's another kind of fishing in a negative way.
Right. I mean,
probably a turnoff.
Yeah, I had an old boss that used to say back in the day it was like $1,500, but sometimes this is a $1,500 life lesson, because these people haven't been dating and they think they're above everything, and they kind of, until you experience some rejection, you may not ever lower, you know, like what your expectations are for your partner. You're expecting this perfect man when you're not perfect. You know,
if I did something on that date and you got feedback consistently, are you going to say maybe, you know, Michelle, tone it down the cologne, or they thought you talked too much, they didn't think you asked a lot of questions? Do you give that kind of coaching to people?
I absolutely, look, first of all, I'm going to ask you, I start with, how do you think the date went? Because usually I have the feedback from both, right? Okay. And I just give a subtle message, things that they can do to improve, and, you know, to not hassle someone who's not really following up with you, they're not calling you, because that's just an indication that they're not interested, you know? And let's keep moving forward. Let's get to the next date. And, you know, that's just how I approach it. Jennifer may have.
Yeah. So I, having like used a matchmaking service, I think So, and working at a big national service, one of their big things was they didn't share feedback because they didn't want it to be gossipy. And we've talked about this recently at work. We don't share feedback after every date, because I know that when I was dating in my 20s, they probably would have said she parties too much. And I remember one of the guys told me he thought I had a big butt. I mean, I don't know that I would have wanted to hear what every single person thought of me. And in the long run, it doesn't matter. I feel like we give them feedback after 3 dates. We look to see if there's a consistent theme. Because if one person says something about you, it's an opinion usually. I mean, it's not that we've never broken that rule, because there's been people that were like, you know, crazy about somebody that they met and they thought the date went amazing, right? So they sort of needed some coaching, but we really try not to give coaching after every single feedback, because we want it to be a journey that they learn from. And, you know, not every single person's opinions matter. It matters what people think of you as a whole, you know?
So then what have you found in your experience actually makes a successful match? And I'm going to start, you can go ahead, Jennifer. I'll start with you. And then if you want to follow up, just to let me know, is there like a laundry list that you cross the dots, you know, dot your I's that this is going to be a successful match?
I feel like how people were raised is a big factor in long-term compatibility. You know, like if they had parents that are still married, and basically if 2 people are matched together and they are both raised middle class and their parents are still together, that's probably a good match. If 2 people were self-made and they had, let's say, a single mother that worked 3 jobs and their parents were together, and they have that as a similar background, you know, raised with like hard times, and they can appreciate that. I find that people that are immigrants, like 2nd-generation immigrants, they do better with somebody that understands that kind of background. So those formative years really do matter. You know, it starts with how you view marriage and how you see the world. And unfortunately, I think the socioeconomics matter. I mean, if you were raised with wealth and went to private schools and got to travel the world, I mean, many times you don't understand how unique and rare that is. You know what I mean? So I typically match.
Okay. Well, you know, one of my favorite movies is Coming to America, where Eddie Murphy, I guess, says that he wants to go and find someone who doesn't have his wealth or the same socioeconomic status. Do you find that often that people say, I don't want anybody that's professional, maybe I just want somebody totally different than me? Do you advise them that that's a good strategy or not?
You know, I think that the women want somebody that was raised by them, like their socioeconomic level, certainly their socioeconomic level now. And I think that's a difference in how men and women date. Like a wealthy guy doesn't care if that girl's wealthy. He just wants her to be attractive and nice to him and appreciative. Like he doesn't necessarily care, but it's the woman that cares. Don't you think, Yolanda?
Every time.
You're looking
the
for
guys
something
are
background.
so much more simple in their approach.
They're way easier to know.
Really? That's okay, audience. You hear that? So ladies, there's a chance. There's a chance. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the man doesn't usually care what the woman does for a living at all. Like he doesn't care if she's like the CEO of a company or an admin or a hairdresser, but as long as she is, you know, somewhat well-spoken, fun to be with, and attractive and nice to them, they don't care. Women care about that stuff. You know, they want an attractive man with a really good job from an intact family who's emotionally intelligent. I mean, it's a laundry list. It's way harder to make a woman happy.
Has there been somebody you just couldn't serve because the list was just, I'll pick on you, Yolanda. Was it just like this person wants Superman?
You always have those, okay? Like, you know, everyone is not realistic about what they want. Some people don't even know how to articulate what they want in a relationship. So, you know, it's that coaching element where you really have to have, and those are the people who are really not ready for matchmaking.
Right.
You know, because you really, you want to be self-assured, you want to be confident, and you really want to know what type of partner you're seeking. And if you haven't done the work on self, it's just, you have to take that as step one.
You know, you read that so many times over and over again, work on yourself first, because, you know, a whole person wants a whole person. And, you know, if there's a lot of baggage, that person can probably sniff that right away and just say, your baloney alarm will start going off to say, this person doesn't have their act together. They're not ready to be in a relationship with anybody because they don't even like themselves. So what different tactics, and I'll start with you, Jennifer, what different tactics do you have to use between, say, Gen Z or a more mature person? You said that your more mature clients tend to know what they want. They don't want to go on as many dates. Can you kind of expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like generally the older people are, unless they're newly divorced, they, you know, people in their 60s and 70s, they typically only go on a handful of dates, you know, and they find somebody and they're out. Like, they don't like try to test the market and see what's out there. They feel like they've done enough living to be able to identify a good catch, and they're ready to settle down as soon as they meet that person. I feel like younger generations, when they meet somebody they like, they want to see if they can do better. You know, there's that bigger, better deal thing, and they don't settle down quickly. And, you know, they've been online dating for a long time and they have a hard time, you know, making a decision. They take a lot longer. They also pursue dates through text.
Huh.
Younger.
Interesting.
Generations, yeah.
Do you recommend, and that's pretty typical. I have a son that's dating age, and I was like, why aren't you calling this person?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
He said, well, we text. He said it's the same thing. That's how they communicate, and it's very, very different than when I came up. Okay, what do you say, Yolanda, in terms of tactics with your seniors versus your Gen Zs, even your Gen X? Do you see that it's different?
Yeah, so my clients are 35 and older, so I don't really deal with a lot of young people in my business. But, you know, I do know that they are more comfortable with, younger people are more comfortable with technology, and they define dating different. You know, a date may not to them be like actually showing up, going out to a dinner, you know. Their mindset about dating is different, how they defined it. And I don't have clients under 35. You know, the people that I service, they are, you know, they know how to articulate what they want and they don't settle. And, you know, it's just different as you're mature and you're dating. Like, you really have decided what type of people or partner you want in your life. So I think, you know, same thing Jennifer has said already.
The people that you deal with in your 30s, you think they're mature generally?
Because I all of my clients are over 35.
I see people in their 30s all the time that haven't had a serious relationship ever, if they're under 35. And then if they're over 35, it's been a decade. So
yeah, well,
you have that.
You know, I always say this for the younger people, their best opportunity to connect and have partnership is when they're in college.
Yeah.
You know, that is one of the greatest opportunities for them to connect, really. But and beyond that, it can get challenging, you know. And then you'll have the 30-year-old woman who now wants to, you know, have a child. And then now she feels like a real sense of urgency about meeting someone.
My girls are 38 to 41 that want children, like every day.
Yeah.
So if someone's sitting there and they're like, you know what, I just may give this a try. Obviously, you're both in Atlanta. Would your recommendation be try online first? If you're thinking about relocating, obviously, I'd want them to come and see you. And since we have a global audience, I'm sure there's somebody in your town that'll be like, I'm going to check them out. But why do you think people would be afraid to put themselves out there? And you just say, take a chance. Because I mean, they're going to have to be honest with you and kind of tell you a whole lot about themselves. So How do you kind of break that ice so that they even feel comfortable telling you the things they need to? And if you could start, Yolanda, maybe just tell me, how would you break that ice with me?
Yeah, so I start with a consultation call, because I want my client to be a fit for me, and I want to be a fit for them. And I take time to really get to know them. I encourage them to do the self work. If I can pick up on maybe they're not comfortable or confident, they've just been sitting on the couch. They haven't really put any real effort into self or dating or taking, or making such an investment like matchmaking. I encourage them to do those things. And then prepare themselves for this process, because when you hire a matchmaker, you have to be ready to date. And that means dressing up and going out, meeting new people, putting yourself out there in a different way. And a lot of, I meet women who think that they're ready for that, but they're not ready, because they get on the date and, and this is some of the feedback I'll get. The guy will say, well, she was on the date and she was talking about how much weight she needs to lose. You see?
Right.
Oh.
You see?
Okay.
So you're not really ready for this process, because it does, men can pick up on that lack of confidence very quickly. And that is not attractive.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hope people are listening to that. Self-deprecating thoughts probably isn't a good thing when you're out on a date, because he may not have noticed that. He may not have noticed the weight issue. He may have found you very attractive, and then you're pointing out all these flaws that you think are flaws.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do you see, Jennifer? Do you see that you have to kind of coach people to give them a little bit of courage? They go on at least maybe the first day.
Yeah. I mean, just Thursday or Friday, I talked to two people, and the calls are really bonding calls, and they said they were scared. And one of the girls was 38, and she hadn't dated in about a decade, and she wanted a kid. And I gave her advice that my father always gave me, which was, is it better, would you feel better about yourself if you tried and failed, or you didn't try at all? What's going to let you sleep better at night? Because she's 38 years old and she wants a baby. So if she doesn't try for a couple years, then that dream's going to pass her by. I don't know whether it'll happen or not, but if it doesn't happen and it's something she wanted, she would probably feel bad that she didn't try hard enough. You know what I mean? So I make them address their fear. But in general, the calls that I do, they feel a little bit like therapy when I first talk to people. I mean, my Sarah Catherine, actually, she's like, you're on the phone with people for an hour. And, I can be many times. And for me, number one, it's a turnoff when they tell me they haven't tried online dating, because I feel like I'm like a trainer, and you're coming to me and you're saying, I want you to fix everything. And if you were a physical trainer for fitness or whatever, and you told me you hadn't worked out by yourself, I'd be like, I'm about to kick your butt. And that's how I feel when they come to me and they haven't online dated. I'm like, you can pay me money, you're going to get your butt kicked. You have no idea what the market's like. You have no idea how to present yourself. You have no idea if what you're looking for is even possible. And you want to just now start trying, you're way behind the 8 ball. So actually, that's a huge turnoff for me. And I would say that if they haven't tried online dating, there's a possibility that I don't want to work with them. I'd rather them do the dinner club or online date for 6 months, because I find, I don't know if you find, Yolanda, if they have an online dating, they're more demanding because they don't know what the market has. They don't even know what's out there. Don't you think? Yolanda?
Yeah, and I mean, if you won't put in the effort of online dating, you probably won't do well with the process of matchmaking either, because you have to put effort in whatever you're doing to get the result that you want.
Yeah.
This is probably a curveball question, but do I have the ability, if you've matched me up, do I sign anything that says I have to complete the date? What if it's just a complete disaster? Do I have to finish? Is that something that you say as a courtesy, you need to finish the date?
I mean, I think they can end a date politely and quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you? I mean,
Okay.
they definitely don't sign anything. Do they, Yolanda, with you?
Other than a service agreement at the beginning, but not, if they are not comfortable with a date, I wouldn't want them to stay on the date, right? So,
Yeah,
and
but
that
that's
it
usually
could
not
be
a
a
factor.
multitude of reasons why. So,
Yeah, but that's not typical where people are rude. I mean, I feel like they know the matchmaker is vouched for them, and if they're really rude, then that might be a problem going forward with how they're set up. So they're just not generally rude. I mean, they would be like they would if their friend was setting them up on a date. I would think it would be the same chances if they were to be rude to their friend's match.
Yeah. Let's give my guest the last word. So I guess I'll start with you, Yolanda. If someone out there is just listening and they're like, I think I'm going to do this, what would be your hurrah, hurrah speech to tell them, go ahead and try? This is something you really should try to do.
Yeah, well, if they are interested in matchmaking and, based on hearing this conversation, if they think they're a fit for this type of service, they can find me all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at My Love in Vogue, and on my website, loveinvogue.com. The first step is the consultation call, and it can be scheduled right on my website. And at their convenience. I keep late office hours. So my office hours are Monday through Thursday from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. because this is the time when most professionals are free and able to sit and talk and, have a conversation. And then I also have office hours on Saturday.
Thank you. And Jennifer, what are your closing thoughts about how people can get in touch with you? And that's interesting. You have two services, the single one-on-one and then group dating, if they want to do the blind group dating. So if you could just kind of give us a summary of both of those services.
Yeah. So my services or our services are only in Atlanta, Georgia. So people would probably need to live here or have business here or second home here or something in order for it to make sense for them. I really don't feel like it would make sense for them unless they were in Atlanta. But if somebody ever emailed me and wanted, Yolanda and I both know matchmakers all over the country, so I feel like we can give good advice about other matchmakers and referrals. But if somebody's in Atlanta, we are in the heart of Buckhead in Atlanta. It's called one-on-one matchmaking for the traditional matchmaking service. And then the other business is called 8 at 8 Dinner Club. And I'm Jennifer Mayaki. You could Google the name of either business and find out how to reach us via email or through the website.
Is there anything else you want to leave us with?
Yeah. The one other advice that I would give singles is that, a lot of times when people come to matchmakers, I feel like they say, hey, I haven't been able to fix it, so you fix it. And that's really assigning your life to somebody else. And I personally feel like anybody that's serious about their love life needs a two-pronged approach. Like, sometimes I tell professional African-American women in Atlanta that they need to do 8 at 8 and hire Yolanda. And no matter how often I say this, they'll do one or the other. And, if this is really important to you, like fitness or church or friendship or finding a job, you need to approach this a few different ways and, look at how it's working for you. There's not a one-hit solution to anything. Life is harder than that, and it's going to take some energy. So I would definitely suggest that anybody single, if they're really trying, they need to online date and do another strategy, be it a matchmaking, a social group or something else, because life's hard. You got to give it some effort.
Well, you know what I've learned from this, and it's interesting, and I found both of you very, very informative, is like anything in life that is worth it takes effort. It takes work. And if somebody is sitting there and they're like, I haven't gone out and I haven't done anything, it could be because you haven't done the work. You haven't, tried to research, what's out there. What am I interested in? What do I bring to the table? What things do I have to fix for myself? And you even talk about just having energy. Once you start this process, it takes work. You got to fix yourself up. You got to be prepared to go out. And so I think if nothing else, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this and you haven't had some great takeaways, then I don't know what to tell you, because it takes work. Nothing in life, there's no free lunch out there. And I think you both are showing that. You're at the top of your game, and I now see why you're at the top of your game. Both of you are amazing, and you're doing amazing things. One more question. How many dates should they go on before they introduce their kids?
Yolanda would know that better than me. I haven't been out there. What would you say, Yolanda?
Yeah.
I really think you can answer that better.
See, I don't, because I always stay away from numbers, but I think you know, when you kind of come into a person's circle, meaning their family and friends, then maybe you want to introduce your children. So however long it takes you to get there, you should be a part of their circle. You should know some of their friends, some of their family, and then, you know, then you may consider making the introduction to your children. But I definitely think it shouldn't be like right off the bat, like I'm dating someone and these are my children. No.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have made a lot of bad mistakes with you. You know, they say they've ended up with narcissists or men that, you know, didn't treat them well. And I always tell people to not worry about that. There should be many levels of screening people. You know, first the matchmaker, then their friends, then their coworkers, and at some point their kids, right? Before it's ever a committed, serious thing. So sometimes I feel like people introduce their kids after they're committed. And like, quite frankly, if your kid hates your mate, I mean, maybe they shouldn't be your mate. You know?
Yeah. It's steps. They should just take steps, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Yolanda and Jennifer, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure meeting you both.
Dr. Michelle.
I sent you greetings from Tabernacle Talk. This has been fun. And I look forward to seeing great things from both of you, because I think you have shown the level of professionalism that I would have expected from professional matchmakers, and you absolutely are that. So thank you for joining us on Tabernacle Talks.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. So what are our key takeaways? Well, remember when we saw Mama's Boy in the beginning and this young lady said, I just don't want a mama's boy? Well, guess what? Men who have close relationships with their moms perform better at school and their jobs, and thus they're going to have better earning potential because of that. And we talked a lot about online dating, and just so many of you are aware, a lot of our men are dating online more so than women, but you got to watch out, ladies, because many of those men are married. So it's almost like a buyer beware, because half of the people actually put erroneous or false information on those profiles. So I think you really need to be prepared to approach this just like you would a job, because you have to do your research to be safe. Because of the high level of incidences of dishonesty, you've got to make sure that you do some checking before you agree to meet and go out with individuals if you're going to be talking to them online. I think one thing that I took away from today's discussion is that you have to really just be patient and not show your hand too quick. I mean, if you're on the first date and you're talking about getting married, that's going to be a real turnoff. Or, you know, you got to lose weight, or all these things that you have to do that are very long term when you don't really have a long term relationship. I remember there was this saying in school that you had to kiss a lot of frogs before you met your prince. Well, I think that pretty much holds true. They may not be frogs, but everybody that jumps in your pond isn't for you, and they're not meant to stay. If you ever have a chance to listen to the TED Talk by Robert Waldinger, he talks about things that make people happy, but he also says loneliness is as powerful as smoking and alcoholism in terms of having an impact on your overall health. And so for some individuals, it is critical and crucial that you have an engaged life with other people so that you can experience true happiness. I found the scripture helpful, and I'll leave you with this. Isaiah 41:10 says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So you see, you may be lonely, but you're never alone. Thanks, and we'll see you next week on Tab Talks. Tab Talks? You better ask somebody.